Shalom, everyone. We are still on the road here. Today finds us in the sunny seaside town of Inverness, which apparently means the mouth of the River Ness. So that's a nice name for this place. And here I am joined by some of our staff, Sally Ann and Lisa, and some trustees. Hi, Sharon, Liz, nice to meet you. We are also celebrating Sukkot. Today is actually the first day of Sukkot. Jewish people around the world have constructed their little booths, probably spent the first night in them if they were in the land of Israel, probably maybe some of the warmer climates as well. Otherwise, they would have constructed their booths and contemplated the journey that we go through life. That is, this world isn't our permanent home. We're actually looking forward to the world to come in the Jewish idea. Or if you look at Matthew, the meek shall inherit the earth. Which earth? The world to come. In all of the festivals and the rhythm and cycle that you have in the Jewish world and in the feasts and of the calendar of the Jewish people and in the Bible, this concludes what we find in the Bible. This is the last festival in the book of Leviticus, although it's not actually the last one that we have anymore. Now we've actually got Hanukkah that's still to come. But in terms of the biblical feasts, this is the last that we see in Leviticus 23, which began with Passover and a story of redemption, and each of the festivals is linked to that story of redemption. As we mentioned in our first discussion on Sukkot, in Leviticus 23, the reason for building booths, God says, is so that we can remember that we were wandering in the wilderness. How did we get into the wilderness? Because God, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, had reached down and had, in an act of redemption, created a people. And so the people of Jews and Gentiles come out of Egypt. We're being created, formed, we're being established as a nation. We're discovering who we are, but not in a safe place. We're not in a safe place. We're in the desert. And so we're being formed in areas that are probably uncomfortable to us, a little bit dangerous, lots of uncertainty. We certainly need help and a guide. And that's almost like the experience of life, isn't it? And so the pattern of the Jewish calendar is one story of redemption from start to end. And each part gives us a little snippet of that story. Sometimes you get the miraculous, like Passover. It's brilliant. Sometimes you get the revelatory, like Mount Sinai and Pentecost. And sometimes you have to go through the hardships, like Sukkot and the wanderings of the wilderness. Yet, and in the mind of the Lord, he asks us to be joyful at this festival. This is one of the few times where God actually takes over our emotions and says, now you be happy. Be happy in my presence, be happy in trials. How can you do that, I hear? Well, there are many of us who can actually give testimony of how the Lord really did bring us through a trial and how much that helped us grow. Not always, but it is there, and there are great opportunities to learn. Now, at each festival, there's always a special book that you read. At Passover, you read Song of Songs. At Shavuot, you read the book of Ruth. And in Sukkot, we're reading Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes might not be one of our go-to books. Okay, it might not be, wow, I can't wait to read some Ecclesiastes today and be filled with hope and joy and love. Because you open the book and all of a sudden this guy by the name of the Kohelet, who is the person who assembles everybody together, that's what his name means. He's attributed as being the son of David and a wise man. So we kind of assume that he's Solomon, or at least a Solomon-like monarch, who proceeds to give his wisdom to the people. But as he does, he starts off by saying, but it's all meaningless. In fact, the word that he uses is hevel. And hevel in Hebrew literally means smoke or vapor. All right. It's translated as things like futile, meaningless. Everything is just a vapor. Smoke is one of those interesting materials. It looks like it's solid because you can see it and it moves and it waves. But if you reach out and try and touch it, you can't. It's just not there. It just disappears. So he kind of looks at life and concludes, if you don't have the Lord, then truly everything is meaningless. In the end, this is actually true. So one of the what's that expression? I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Right? Have you heard that expression? I think it's actually quite a good one. You know, if you don't believe in God, and there are many people who will say, but I really don't believe in God. They do. They just don't want to admit it. Why? Because if you actually didn't believe in God, if you actually believed that when you closed your eyes for the last time, that's it, and there'll be no memory of you, you will have no memory, and everything you've ever done will have absolutely no meaning whatsoever, then you are in a very lonely place. Nothing in all of this world would ever make sense. There can't be anything called good or evil because it doesn't actually have a basis to exist in that way. And so the teacher has had a look and he says, all I see in the world is that good and evil, yeah, bad things happen sometimes, good things happen sometimes. What truly is the meaning to life? And without God, it's meaningless. And then we get that chapter 3 brings to that interesting chapter on time, that there truly is a time for everything. He notices that God made time, that time, sometimes we are very happy, sometimes we are very sad. Do we understand why? Not always. And so as he goes through the book, what he is really describing is a world in which we do not have control. And that's actually a little piece of wisdom, to wake up one day and realize there's a large sections of the world that I cannot control. And and what does it mean to not have control? Well, sometimes actually that can actually be quite liberating. What do I mean by that? I lived in Israel for 26 years, as you know. And as we've gone on this journey, people ask, what's it like living in Israel with all that tension and all those troubles? And, you know, what about your son, you know, being in the IDF? And aren't you worried about that? And how do you handle it? And I said, well, I learned a long time ago that I actually have no control over any of that. None whatsoever. I can't control how Hezbollah will react. I can't control how terrorists will react. I can't control how much the money the government wants to take from me. I can't control any of that. So all of a sudden, I've got one option. Do I surrender that to the living Lord or not? And you do. And when you give it to God, you're actually quite free. All of a sudden, the burden that the world has put on people, the stress that they put on themselves because they're trying to control things that they cannot control, and they're not allowing the Lord, who has wisdom that far surpasses our understanding. We say those sentences, Lord, your wisdom is so high and you give us the peace that passes all understanding, but do we really even know what that means? Most likely not. And do you know what? That's okay. Just to be able to say God has it all in control. Do I see it? No. What I see is what the wise man of Kohelet saw, of Ecclesiastes. He saw good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. He saw people enjoy their life and he saw people not enjoy their life. He saw the rich and the poor go to exactly the same place, the grave. And he was going, wow, there has to be something more. How do I make sense of this? And the sense of it really is God is in control. And that's the wisdom of this book, is that God is in control. Let's read the last couple of sentences of this book because it's actually like a conclusion. And so if you have a look at Ecclesiastes chapter 12, you probably know these almost off by heart. It's about the only part of the book we kind of remember apart from chapter 1 and maybe chapter 3. Chapter 12, verse 9 starts off. It's my Bible here's got a title, which is not in the original. It says the conclusion of the matter. That is our author, which we now discover is not actually the teacher. It's a guy writing what the teacher says, right? It's not actually the teacher. So he says this is the conclusion of all of the thoughts and the wisdom that the teacher has been bringing to us. He says, not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and he searched out and he set in order many proverbs. Well, that probably could be Solomon there. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like goads. Their collected sayings are like firmly embedded nails, given by one shepherd. That would be God. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. Of the making of many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Basically, what does that mean? That means you can search and read and study, and at the end, your conclusion will be, the more I know, the more I don't know. Now, that doesn't mean don't search, don't read, don't study. It just means don't put your hope in thinking that science is going to solve everything. Don't think that the more books I read, the smarter I'll become, the more control I will get, because you will not. There'll be parts of your life you can control, and there'll be masses amount of life that you can't. And that's one of the reasons why we pray. Please, we ask the Lord to do things that are so much beyond our control, because he is in control. Then he says, now, this is verse 13. Now all has been heard, and here is the conclusion of the matter. After 12 chapters, here we go. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. So God is in control. He is the one that is going to bring justice to the world. The bad guys do not get away with it. And so fear God, keep his commandments, because that is the duty of man. So if this is an ancient wisdom book, and it's part of the genre of what they call wisdom literature of the Bible, there are different genres in the Bible. The Bible is not all the same genre. No one reads the Gospels in the same way you do the Kings, okay? Right? They're different. You don't read Paul the same way you do Revelation. You don't read the Torah the same way you do the Psalms. And wisdom is different. And so duty, where do we find duty in the New Testament, I hear you ask? Good question. Luke 17. If you go to Luke 17, where Jesus says, Luke 17, verse 7, suppose one of you has a servant plowing or looking after the sheep. Will he say to the servant when he comes in from the field, come along now, sit down and eat? Won't he rather say, prepare my supper, get yourself ready and wait on me while I eat and drink. After that, you may eat and drink. Will he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? So you also, when you have done everything you were told to do, should say, we are unworthy servants. We have only done our duty. Is that something you and I could say to Jesus? I hope so. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because usually we like to say to Jesus something like this: you're my best friend, you're my Lord and Master, you're absolutely wonderful, thanks for doing everything for me, right? And it's true, he has done a lot for us, but there's also now an obligation. that in this relationship, Jesus gives us commandments. And what does Jesus say? If you love me, keep my commandments. And here, the conclusion of the matter is when we come to the Lord, we don't demand from him. We don't say, why did so-and-so die at a young age? Why is cancer in the world? Why have you made mosquitoes? I mean, all those horrible things that there are. What Jesus turns around and he wants you to hear is, have you done your duty? And that's actually a little piece of wisdom. It might not be a part of the Bible we want to read. And so one of the treasures of the lectionary cycle is every Sukkot, the Jewish people get together, they're celebrating joy, they know that they're part of a redemptive story, but they're also looking at the world trying to find meaning. And in the meaning, they say, God, you are in control. I admit that. I don't understand everything. I can't discover everything. I can't possibly know everything, but you can. And because of that, I surrender to you that you are in control. And my response to this is, I will simply love you and obey. I will simply do my duty, knowing that you hold all things. You are making everything new. You will judge right from wrong. You will come one day and separate sheep from the goats. You will come and set up your throne, and you will make this world an absolutely beautiful place. And we would all like to delight to be a part of that. That's the message that we can bring today in Sukkot and Ecclesiastes. And so as we all wake up this morning, let's go forth and do our duty.